I was listening to the story about, it was a story of a family in Washington, and the little boy called the Bigfoot the cowboy man. And he had, apparently it had made an effort to steal this kid. And it hit me. My children were in that playpen behind me with nothing but a mosquito net over them. It could have crept up behind me and taken both of my children, and I wouldn't have known.
Father just got like a Mustang or something from Wyoming, okay? He had it out in the corral because he couldn't put it in the barn in the stalls with the other horses. It would kick and made all the other horses nervous. Had a Seminole Indian working the horse trying to break it every day. So they had it out in the corral. This skunk ape snuck up behind this horse and grabbed it on its hind quarters. This particular horse kicks out, jumps over the corral, runs into the pasture, to get away. At this point, the rancher's out there just blasted away with the 30-30. Skunk ape runs into the swamp.
I went up there one day after that, or 2 days after that. I went up there and sat in the silence up there, and I'm telling you, man, it was free. It was crazy. There was a crazy vibe up there still. I did what I could to kind of get things under control, but I told her, I said, you need to get off this property. I feel like no matter how strong you are, it's almost like standing in the ocean. You can't stand still without moving your feet. You're going to get knocked over eventually, no matter how strong, whatever. You can't withstand a barrage of weird spiritual energy.
What is up?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Paranormal Audio. Are you still on my line, man? What are you doing?
Yeah, I was.
How's it going out there tonight? I hope everyone is doing well. I am Wayne, of course, your host, joined as always by my partner in crime, Miss over anxious Tiffany. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm okay. I'm a little punchy. I'm tired. This time change is like totally messing with my brain. I was ready to go to bed at 6:30.
What do you mean punchy? What does that mean?
Like, just, I don't know. I've just always heard it called that. Just not, you're not fully awake, but you're not asleep. You're just kind of there, existing.
Yeah. You're just making shit up.
This possibility.
Miss Tiffany says you've been like that all day.
Yes. I was laying in bed at 6:30 and I was watching TV, and he was getting ready to take a shower, and he was like, "You're not getting tired, are you?" And I was like, "Yep, I'm tired." And he was like, "Well," he said, "you'll miss your show. You'll have to send me in there with Wayne. I'll be your stand-in." I was like, "Yep."
Come on, Miss Tiffany. Maybe you'll be a little more professional.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
But your name has to be Mrs. Tiffany.
Lord. Y'all would miss my idiocracy. I keep it interesting. See, he said, Mr. Tiffany, filling in for sleeping Tiffany. Am I lagging?
Of course, my internet just kicked me out. Am I
back?
Oh,
it did. Oh, it's a good thing that I like to talk, because I just kept talking. I didn't even know. We're so professional, Wayne.
I don't know what I'm going to do about this. I know it. All right, let's try to get through this before I get kicked out again. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do about my internet. How long did we go with no issues? And then
forever.
Literally, the only thing different I have done is I have 2 laptops right here in my studio. I moved it from over here to over here, so I'm facing the extra camera instead of like this, looking at me sideways. It's a foot. I mean, I didn't even move it a foot. It should not affect it that much, but if it's still stupid tonight, I'm just going to move it back.
There you go. See, I mean, it's not going to hurt it.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, if you have not done so out there, please hit that subscribe button. We would absolutely appreciate it. Adding new subs every day, but still.
And I think we lost him again. Yep, we did. His mic will mute. If you have not subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button for us. And if you would like to be on with Wayne and myself, you can contact Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com, or myself, Tiffany, at paranormalworldproductions.com. And while you're at it, head over to paranormalworldproductions.com. There are so many shows over there. You have our show, Paranormal World Productions, and then you have that Bigfoot podcast. You have Kentucky X-Files. I mean, just the whole gamut. So head over there and show your support, pick up some merch. If you have any questions for tonight's guest, please put them in all capital letters so we can grab them, put them on the screen, and she'll be able to see them. While you're on Facebook doom scrolling, that's what I do. Head over to Manimal Research. It's Wayne's research group. He started it in 2019. Still very active. So absolutely head over there and check it out. And as you see, my illustrious, unprofessional host is not here. So I'm assuming he is working his hardest to get back in here, and he's probably swearing very much. But we have a great guest tonight, and we're going to go ahead and bring her out. This is the, Wayne had told us last week that he had sat down and heard just an amazing encounter story. So we're going to go ahead out and bring Marsha Clark out. Now, just to let you know, she does want her identity kept hidden, so you will not be able to see her face. But let's bring her out and get this going. How are you?
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, how are you?
Bad. Not bad. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you could come, and I'm sorry we're having so many technical difficulties.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I'm glad I can help and spread some good science.
Yes. Well, we are all about the Bigfoot encounter. So let's get into it. What piqued your interest and got you into this community, this world?
Well, I started out just a little way back, 1984, being at Marine Corps training facility in Bridgeport, California in the winter. And I was standing guard duty, and about a foot of snow, standing on a wood platform, and nice, brilliant, bright moon, kind of cold in the mid-20s. And I had just been dropped off by my sergeant, and about 10 minutes later, this very large figure just stood out from behind this huge redwood. I immediately just froze. It was black-brown hair, probably from 8.5 to 9 foot tall, as wide as two people standing next to one another. What I noticed first, I had an M16 in my hands, but what I first noticed, it had human eyes. We locked eyes for about a good 7 seconds, 7 Mississippis, and it was obviously a he, and he broke contact, opened his mouth, exhaled, turned around, and just started walking away. He went 50, 60 yards into a tighter clump of trees, and the footprints just are gone. And I was in shock for a long time. Didn't know what I saw, didn't know who I could really tell. I tried to tell my staff sergeant, and he told me just put in the log book that you encountered indigenous wildlife. And I left it at that. That encounter had been in my dreams for years. It had, sometimes I would sit out at night and just think, was I kind of crazy? Did I really see that? And I kept it to myself. Later on in life, I retired from the Marine Corps and went to school again. Was now a field geologist, and those memories of that encounter started coming back heavy and strong, and it really drove a fire and interest to say, no, I know what I saw, and I need to prove it, at least to myself. And it's around that time I started seeing that the internet wasn't really born at that time, not for another 8 or 9, 10 years. And so every time I was in the field, Northern California or Arizona or Montana, Idaho, I would always sort of have this edge of anticipation, like, maybe again. Mm-hmm. Is he over there watching me? I don't know. But that's what started it.
Well, and you got to think too, like you said, in 1984, the internet wasn't born. I had only been.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, I retired in 1992, and and so it still wasn't there. So, but it was always nagged at me as to what really happened. So when I got to, I graduated University of California, and I'm out doing field research, and I end up in Montana, and I'm camping out by myself, and nice bright moon, nice, nighttime vision. And around 2:00 in the morning, the shadow just encompasses my tent. It jostles all my cookware, my equipment. It even unlatched some storage totes I had. And again, that same feeling I felt years past instantly hit me again, almost like a pseudo form of PTSD. And I just froze. The encounter lasted maybe all of 2.5, 3 minutes. And I heard the footprints slowly go away. In the morning, I was kind of sheepish and going out of my tent, but I got out making coffee, and lo and behold, about 40, 50 feet away, where the grass was about waist high, there was a circle where the grass had been matted down about 7 or 8 foot in diameter. I have a feeling he probably slept near my campsite the whole night. Can't prove it. At the time, I didn't have the forethought of looking for tracks or hair or anything like that. But that was rather unique as well. Again, being a field geologist. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I had
was
just
that Wayne?
No, I was just going to let you know that I was back, and I'm sorry about the technical difficulties, and I missed that first encounter. I just letting you know that I was back and trying to figure out where exactly you were. Is this the second one that you shared with me?
Yeah, that's the one in Montana where something had slept next to me. Left an imprint of about 7.5 feet circle, 8 foot diameter circle. at this point, my curiosity is getting more and more and more. And about that time, BFRO and computers, the internet, started to come up on the scene. And I used to participate in what was called the Blue discussion boards. And I would quiz people, asking them questions. And so I really needed to resolve this issue. And so I just kept my ear to the ground and paying attention and focused on my career, the engineering field, geotechnical engineering field, oil industry. And when I retired from that career, I told myself the day's going to come where I can dedicate myself full time, be in a position, socially, financially, etc., where I can really put my attention into dealing with this. And I finally got to participate in a BFRO expedition, and went to Ohio. And I really can't share much more in location other than that. And we had my second night there. I'm laying in my tent. I'm real close to the wall of my tent, and all of a sudden there's something breathing, probably a foot away from me, but on the other side of the material of the tent, and I can hear it, and it's kind of gruff. And all of a sudden I start hearing this really loud white noise in my ears, starting to become painful, and then it's gone. There's commotion in camp, and I hear it running back and forth. And then right there, my feet were pushing out the side of the tent. Something with one hand pushed my entire body back up my cot. Like I didn't weigh a thing. And I weigh over 240 pounds. I'm, 6'7". And that really, really shocked me, to say the least. Later in the morning, we found, oh boy, my heart's fluttering, found partial footprints, etc., and handprints on vehicles. Apparently, 2 Sasquatch came into camp, stole food off a table, and they used my tent to hide behind. And that really shocked me, that I would actually be touched like that. And then the pain of the encounter, the white noise. The lead investigator, the organizer of the expedition, told me I was probably being zapped at that time. Other investigators there recorded the encounter, me yelling out in pain because of the white noise being so loud, and then me yelling when they touched me and pushed me up, and it's made me slide up the cot. That, to be quite honest, that made me even more diligent and just more dedicated into finding out what is going on. I started out, yeah.
We got our first question for you, Mr. Troy Hensley. Troy is asking, waiting for it to pop up here. Was the vegetation within the circle laid down in any particular direction? When you saw the imprint of what looked like something laying down, was the vegetation laid down such as you see in crop circles?
From what I recall, it was pretty much random. These were tall weeds that the soil had a matrix of small pea-sized gravel and dirt and leaves and debris, and the grasses were like one of those summer grasses that only grows during the summer in Montana. And I don't recall there being any specific orientation, or direction. I just recall that the diameter of the circle was much larger than me. At first, I thought maybe it was a moose, but a moose is not going to open the tabs to a storage hoofs on the gravel and the pebbles. And I didn't hear either of those things.
Okay. Okay. Now to get back to the one you were just talking about, the pain you were talking about experiencing.
Yeah, that was. I ultimately, when I got back from the expedition, I went to the VA because my ears were clogged, and I had blood in both ears, dried blood in both ears.
So that was the pain you were talking about.
Yeah, they had to flush my ears out and stuff like that. So. And on that expedition, we also observed a potential hunting party by Sasquatches, sitting out on a ridge with 5 other people, and one side of the ridge, it would go down. It would slope down pretty steeply down to the bottom of the valley, maybe 100 feet below us, and then go up to another ridge, and then behind us it went down steeply. Going up to another ridge, and we started having rocks and pine cones being thrown at us from behind. And then a few minutes later, rocks and acorns and pine cones being thrown from the front. When we finally stood up, we noticed that there was a deer hidden in the thicket just 8 feet away, and it was shaking so bad you could see the actual brush shake. We stood up and we observed through our FLIR units, the infrared, FLIR equipment, set the white hot, and which is temperature sensitive, and could see quite plain as day at about 15 feet what appeared to be a female, and 2 smaller ones about half her size, probably 5 feet, or 3.5 to 4 feet. And as soon as we stood up, she and the 2 small ones ran down slope across the little valley and up about a quarter way up the other ridge. The 2 little ones went into a tree, and we could see them, these hot white like blobs in the tree. And she stood behind a bush, just weaving back and forth, and you could actually, because of the temperature, it was like in the upper 30s, you could actually see her exhale. Behind us, we suspect were 2 males, and as soon as she withdrew, one of the males took off, went around us, ran through the vehicles. We suspect caught up with her. The other one, when the other 2 took off, the deer all of a sudden shot out, went down slope, and we suspect the other lone male that was left took off after the deer. That was pretty traumatic as well for everyone, being that many there at one time. It was just by coincidence that our group walked out onto that ridge that was no more than 12, 15 feet wide at the top. And we walked into the middle of this potential hunting party. It appears that the female was teaching the 2 juveniles how to push a deer into the awaiting hands of the 2 males. That was really unique to observe that and experience that.
Now, Marshall, was this a daytime sighting?
This was nighttime, approximately 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. The ridge we were on was more like an arête, like a finger that shoots out into a valley, and very narrow. It's so narrow that you didn't want to drive vehicles out on it. You had to park far away and then walk over to it.
Okay. Okay. Now, did anything else happen in this encounter?
With this encounter, like I said, we had the rock throwing, acorn throwing. I heard rocks probably the size of a plum or so just whizzed by my head, and others as well. We had two people who had never been on an expedition before. The wife stood up and said, no, this is crazy. We're out of here. They turned around, left, went back to base camp, packed, and went home. Drove all the way back to New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
They were that afraid or anxious. Again, these were all reports that were written and submitted and sit in the database that we had this encounter. That whole expedition, very well organized, and all the people there knowing exactly what they're doing. Like 2 mornings later, most of the vehicles had handprints on them, forearm impressions and sides of windows, etc. And the leader, just being the consummate expert and professional that he was, he knew to take pictures, use fingerprint dust and brushes and all that stuff, and was able to capture all that information and evidence.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that you had a chance to see him in the daytime to maybe shed some light on appearance. Have you ever had a daytime sighting?
Yes, when I did there in the Sierras, and again in the next encounter I'm about to describe to you, was a daytime sighting at about 60 feet away. This next encounter was in Tennessee, and I was there on another expedition, and I had volunteered to stay behind. The park was being closed for the season, and everyone for the expedition had left. The rangers, the camp hosts, all left. The gate was locked, and our group had rented a huge tent because of the inclement weather. And I volunteered to stay behind to meet the rental company to come pick it up. So I had the key to unlock the gate, and I wanted to make sure nothing happened to it, because the leader of the expedition, they're responsible for it, and I would make sure no damage occurred. So to me, it didn't seem like not a big deal to stay there. What I didn't realize is that I was literally the lone human being in the entire park. Thousands and thousands of acres, and I was the only one there. And so everyone left. It's a Sunday, and it's about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm going around gathering firewood that people left behind. And I'm bending over at a fire ring, putting the wood in my little pull-behind wagon, and I see a figure run from tree to another tree. This figure was 6.5, 7 feet tall, slender, conical head. Its fur wasn't as heavy and dense and thick as the one years past in the Sierras. It wasn't as broad-shouldered, and its muscles weren't quite as defined. I believe it was probably an older teen or a young adult. And so as I was picking up the wood, I kept telling myself, don't panic, control your breathing, pretend you don't see it, just keep it in your peripheral vision, and you'll probably be able to observe it for longer. And that's what I did. So every time I picked up a piece of wood, I just slowly rotated my body, and there he goes again. From that tree to the third tree. Just runs right fast, really fast. And I got a lock on this guy. And this time he turned his head and breathed in, opened his mouth. You could see his teeth were straight across. There were no canine fangs at all. There were partial whites of the eyes. And you could tell this had a look of being some kind of human. This was not an animal or a bear or any of those other things. At that point, I couldn't turn any further without making it obvious. I tried to move a little bit more, and instead of running to another tree, the Squatch ran away from me downslope, down on the other side of a rise, and went away. I started, God, that was, just so incredible. So I took my wagon with the wood that was in it and took it back to my camp and, started a fire. I brought out my notebook and I tried to make notes of what I had seen. It was just, I was just sometimes shaking. My notes were, I could not read, illegible. I'd have to rewrite it again. A cross between shock and excitement and everything all at one time. I made dinner. It started raining and light rain and drizzle started up. It was start and stop. And I'm camped in a large tent. It's 8 by 16 feet, almost 7.5 feet tall in the center. And it's a pretty heavy duty 3-season tent. And I have a 10 by 10 pop-up canopy to the front of it to help shield me more from the rain. I have my own little camp kitchen, Coleman stove and cookware, etc. So I make a little bit of dinner, don't eat it. I'm just so excited and nervous and everything else. It gets to be about 6 o'clock, almost 7, and I can hear a pack of coyotes, or 6 or 7 coyotes, about 200 yards away, where that big tent that we had rented for the expedition. They were over there, and they would howl every now and then. It was my suspicion they were over there sniffing for scraps of food that was left behind, that kind of thing. Because people were eating there and camping there for 3-4 days. So I pretty much kept an eye on that. They stayed over there. I stayed where I was. I tried doing my own best imitation of a coyote howl, and they stopped and turned around and looked in my direction. Didn't do anything. So it got to be about another hour. The rain got a little bit heavier, and I decided that I'll probably go in the tent now. And I closed up my outer camp, put everything away in the totes, locked them up. I also use plastic ammo cans to store things like cookware or electronics, tent pins, things like that. And I kept those up on my picnic table that I had dragged up underneath the pop-up canopy. So I'm in my tent. I'm sitting in a chair, and I'm sipping coffee, and didn't have no cell reception, no Wi-Fi, nothing like that. And I'm just sitting there sipping coffee, reading a book, and every once in a while I'd remember some element of something to put in my notes, and I'd go over and write it in my notebook. And all of a sudden I hear some footsteps moving probably 25, 30 feet away. And so this time they were, it sounded like 4 legs. I heard heavy breathing, grunting, and I pretty much identified that as a bear. One had been spotted near camp a few days earlier and had been chased away just with flashing a light at it. And so I used a common practice I'll use the key bob in the alarm system of my car, and I'll hit the button and make the car horns beep beep a couple times, the lights flash. And sure enough, it scared the bear away. I could hear it. Adjacent to me was a gravel top access road that came into the area. And I heard go away. I waited a couple minutes till I didn't hear any footsteps. I unzipped the door to the tent and I looked outside. I didn't see anything, and I didn't hear anything. So I went ahead and went back and sat down again. About a half hour later, I hear more footsteps. This time it didn't sound like a bear. The rain's getting a little heavier, and this time it's bipedal and it's heavy. I'm not sure. This could be another camper, and so I yell out. I hit my car alarm a couple times. Footsteps are still going around me. I yell out loud, "Hey, I'm here. I'm armed." With the expedition being over, I could take the firearm out of my car, and you need to get out of my camp. So I hit the car alarm again, and the footsteps went away. Now it's about 11 o'clock, 11:30, and I'm getting tired of figuring, well, I've thought about this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to back my car up so the back of the car is protecting one end of my tent. I'm going to tip the picnic table up on its side where the bench seat is touching the ground, and I'm going to move my camp table and camp kitchen over and block off the entrance. So with the really dense bushes behind my tent, and I'm circled by the car and the picnic table, if anything comes close to the tent, it's got to go over that stuff and make a noise. At the same time, another hack that I do, I'll take out a little battery-operated personal alarm. If you pull the pin on it, it makes about a 60 decibel ring, 64 decibel ring. And so I circled the immediate area around my tent, the car, the picnic table with a 4-pound fishing line and attached it to the personal alarm. Went back in the tent, did a quick field wash up with towelettes and lay down on my cot. Now it's about 12:30 and the alarm goes off. I wake up instantly, and my first thought was that I had done something wrong. Maybe because of the rain, maybe a branch fell on a string, pulled it out. Maybe I need to leave more slack in the fishing line. That was my first impression. So I put my boots on, unzip, I go outside, and there's the little device dangling and the little pin on the other side of the line dangling in the wind, in the air. And I have to put a flashlight, hold it, and take my time to put that pin back into the alarm device to turn it off. There's no switch. There's no pulling the batteries out of it because it's built in. And I finally get it in there. It takes me a minute or two, and I get it in. And then I loosened up the string a little bit, left a little bit more slack in it, and did a quick look around with the flashlight. Didn't see anything around me, and went back in my tent, zipped up, waited a few moments, and laid back down. 30 minutes later, the alarm went off again. Now I'm a little concerned. The rain was kind of loud. The wind was sort of pushing the bushes a little bit, and I didn't know if I could quite hear something or not. I wasn't sure. So this time, but for some reason, I'm a little concerned, and I put my shoes back on. This time I grab my rifle, and I unzip the tent. I go outside. Well, I get ready to go outside, and all of a sudden the alarm turned off. It stopped. When it stopped, I froze. Only way to turn it off is to put the pin in it. I chambered around in my Henry rifle and slowly began unzipping the door to see what was out there. I unzip it. I got my headlamp on. I'm looking, and all I see are the two ends of the fishing line dangling in the wind. The entire alarm unit, pin, and alarm are gone. The hair on the back of my neck was raising up. All the spidey senses in me were on active alert. That was pretty tense. So this time, I get another alarm unit. They come in, and I put another one. This time I bungee it to a tree. I take the string, I run it through the roof rack, bring it over to the unit, and put it in. And this time I pull the furniture in closer to the front door. I make it tighter. I make it higher. I also put a little carabiner clip, a little micro one, on when I get inside the tent. I actually put a carabiner through the zipper handles, so you can't unzip the tent. I moved my cot to the middle of the tent, so I'm not near the perimeter. And I laid down with the rifle, and not uncommon when you're in Marine Corps to do that. And the thing is that as soon as I laid down, I instantly passed out. Didn't hear another thing the rest of the night. Woke up as soon as the sun came up. I just shot up like someone turned a switch on. And I hear movement in front of the tent immediately. And I'm trying to clear the fog, wipe my eyes, find my glasses, put my shoes on, and I grab my rifle. I unzip the top of the door and I look out, and I see that the picnic table's now is on all four legs. It's been tipped over. And there's a coyote standing on the top of the picnic table. I yell at the coyote, "Hey, hey," and he just takes off. He runs. And I told myself a coyote can't tip that table over. The ammo cans and the totes I had stacked were all sitting on the ground. The alarm, the second alarm I put up, was gone as well. The bungee laying on the ground. So I'm kind of now just super confused. What the hell's going on? I suspect that this is a very educated Squatch, is my first inkling now at this point. And I start water for coffee, and I'm sitting in my chair. I break out my notebook and my pen, and I'm writing notes. I'm taking notes on everything that happened and trying to be as detailed, what's fresh in my mind. And I got the rifles leaning right there next to the table next to me. And now the rain has sort of subsided, and now the fog is rolled in by this time. And you can't see any more than maybe 50, 60 feet. It's so thick up there. And while the coffee water is still heating, I hear this extremely loud branch break, almost like it was a muffled shotgun. It was so loud. And my first thought was, oh crap, something hit that circus tent that was rented. And I better go check that out, because my friend who's the head of the expedition is responsible for this thing. And I want to document if there's any damage. And that's why I'm there. I turn the water off, I grab my rifle, I head off. It's about 200 yards over to where I heard it and where the end of the tent was. And I get over there, and there's this large branch, approximately 4 3/4 inch in diameter, snapped off a tree, about 7.5 feet in the air, 8 feet in the air, and it's laying on the ground. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, I was set up. I was tricked out of my camp. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I turn around. I go back to my camp. This time, I'm thinking like a Marine. I'm looking for things to my left and right. I'm watching. I'm trying to keep track of what's on my six, and I'm going, there's something here. And that's intentionally messing with me. And I get back to my camp. I turn the water back on. All my sensors are on high alert. I sit down in my chair. I got the rifle still cocked around in the chamber. I got right next to me, leaning against my leg. I grab my notebook. I go to get my pen, and my pen is gone. Well, that pen was kind of special to me. A good friend of mine, Kevin, had given me that pen. It's the kind that when you're on an expedition, you need to write notes. The tip lights up with a little light, and it was yellow. And but anyhow, the pen was gone. My first thought was I'd left it. I dropped it somewhere. So I looked for it, didn't see anything. So I get another one. Coffee's done now. Pour coffee. I'm drinking my coffee. And I start getting camp disassembled and loaded and whatnot. And it got to where now it's about 9:30ish, 9:45. And the rental company is supposed to be there any time to start disassembling the circus tent type thing. And I have to be up there to unlock the gate. And so, the last thing I need to load is the wagon. And because normally I just tie it to the top of the car. And but there was a big stack of red oak firewood over by this camp ring, and I wanted that wood. It's expensive wood. And so I go over there with the wagon, and I go to sit down to start loading this wagon, and I look to my right, and there's my yellow pen. Something told me to get out of there. I left the wood. I dragged the wagon quickly back to my car. I bungeed it to the roof, and I left. The entire time, there was something else in control, playing with me, agitating, whatever you want to call it. I went out to the gate. I left it unlocked, and I left. Subsequently, as a prologue, I had learned that the sheriff's department had been called multiple times. The last few days of the expedition, a very tall, large, dark figure was menacing cars, looking into motorhomes, looking at cars, etc. And people had filed reports with the sheriff's department of this thing, this person, this entity, this big, tall thing that was there. I think I encountered that same thing. And it was curious of what I had in camp, or maybe it was looking for food. Maybe it liked the yellow pen that lights up. But they were definitely in control. They watched me put that pin in that alarm unit. Just one time, they knew enough how to put it back in. They knew how to get me out of camp by breaking a branch. Very intelligent. Very intelligent. They controlled me the entire time, whether I liked it or not. And that just told me that what else could happen. It was best for me to get out of there.
Wow. Yeah. We've got a few questions for you.
Please go ahead.
We're gonna get those out of the way real quick, and then I'm gonna add a little bit to what you said. First one, Carson asked, and it was about the fingerprints that were left on the car and one of the other encounters that you discussed. He said, did the fingerprints have any sticky residue on or around the print?
No. The pictures of the fingerprints that I have after the fingerprint dust was applied to them, it shows actual, ridges and everything, but there was no residual gumminess or moisture or anything like that.
Okay. Dr. John Baranchuk asks, do you believe there are species of Sasquatch, some more animal-like, some more human-like?
I know John. Hey, John. Um, I think that what we identify as Sasquatch is a living, breathing, bleeding, defecating, hairy biped that exists in the forests and has learned to survive by staying away from man. I believe it's on the same evolutionary tree as Homo sapiens, but it is not a Homo sapien Homo sapien. There could be different varieties, or even a sub to a sub species like we have as human beings. We have Aborigine people, we have people of Asian descent, we have people of German descent. They're all slightly different in appearance and size and weight. So you have to suspect that there's going to be variations, even in this branch of the Homo sapiens.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've never really thought about that. We have different races of people. Asians look
Why
different
not?
from Americans, Eastern Europeans. I mean,
Yeah,
African.
we have different subspecies of apes. We have different subspecies of horses and dogs and cats. Who's to say that the process of evolution doesn't apply wildly across all spectrums of life?
That's very, very interesting. That's a great point. Great point. Troy asks if does the guest spend an unusual amount of time in the woods or outside? You go on a lot of these expeditions, don't you?
Yeah, yes, I do. But as a Marine, being in the field, being in the engineering field, oil industry, and my own research with BFRO, I have probably spent almost a third of my life, and I'm 62 years old. I've probably spent close to a third of my life in the field, in the bush. I'm very adept at being in the wild, whether it's the desert, the mountains, the boreal forest of Upper Alaska, or it can be the tropical forest of Washington, or the Adirondacks, or the Appalachian. I'm perfectly comfortable in any of those environments.
All right, very good. Yeah, I mentioned that I wanted to add a little bit. Unfortunately, we were having some technical issues before, when we brought you on. Tiffany did a great job covering for me, and while I was getting situated. But I did want to, before I brought you on, I wanted to thank you for your service, in the Marines. So thank you for that.
Yep, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And also, I wanted to mention a little bit that Marcia and I met on the recent BFRO expedition that I was invited by Miss Lori Wade to come out and attend. And what I did was I took volunteers to have people come back to the campsite and record some encounters that they've had. And I had a few people that took me up on that. Marcia was one of them. Marcia was the very first one that came and sat down, and she talked for 40 minutes. She explained all the encounters that she just laid out for all of you guys, and my jaw was just dropped the whole time. I asked her. I said I wasn't going to ask. I wasn't going to ask questions while she was doing it, but I ended up asking questions while she was doing the, just telling it. And I was going to take all of those encounters and put them together and make just one episode on a podcast. But her stories were so good that I decided to just have her come on and share them live for everybody to hear, because I was going to say, warn you guys that some of these encounters are amazing, but y'all got to hear them before I could say it. But a part of the expedition, it ended up being a back-to-back expedition, so it was 7 days long. I was only there for the first 3, and then there was 4 more days after. Marcia, you stayed the entire time, right?
Yeah, I was there in the capacity of being like a consultant, like doing the science. So I ended up having to be there the entire time. We had some unusual encounters. I guess you may want to call preemptory tongue twister.
I couldn't even say it.
Communication. Yeah, we had some primitive communication with whistling and click sounds with a couple different Sasquatches. We would make a sound, and the Sasquatch from 30, 40 feet would do it back. We would click again, and it would do it back. Later on at night, it did it with whistling. One of our senior members would play the end of a harmonica, the very highest note, and something would whistle back. And he'd play it again, it would whistle back. So in a very primitive way, we were communicating with these bipeds. I'm not saying that we were sharing life histories or copies of the Gettysburg Address, but it's a start. We were communicating. Nothing that's very encouraging.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you believe that we can communicate with them because y'all basically.
I believe, yes, I do. I believe Dr. Jane Goodall is probably the biggest example where she met this group of gorillas and other primates, and she earned the trust of this group and was slowly accepted. We've had other anthropologists, forensic anthropologists, that have met groups of people in the rainforests of South America that have never seen Europeans before, and slowly earn their trust and experience and learn about these newfound peoples. I don't think this is any different. However, there are some quirks to it. These species have learned to survive by being hidden, by staying away from humans. Humans are potentially dangerous. We carry long sticks that make loud noises that kill Sasquatches. And so they've learned to stay away from us as a means of survival. And that's pretty well documented if you go all the way back through writings with Native American tribes and et cetera, and indigenous people throughout North America, that these were always identified as another tribe of people, and they would just learn to stay away from one another. And I think that's pretty conclusive evidence that this is just another tribe of people, not quite as high up on the evolutionary tree as we are, but still just the same. They're a form of Homo sapien.
Yeah. Is there anything else that happened that jumps out at you? We just got a couple more minutes here before I'll let you go. But if you can think.
We had we also had we observed up on one ridge 3 different people operating a FLIR set to white hot, so body temperature would identify as white. We observed a dark figure moving through the woods. You could see the arm swing, walking, the legs moving, and it came up heavy, dark black, not white.
Yeah.
We checked the FLIR. The settings are all correct. We look back at it, and it's still walking back and forth. Now, on the other side of this stand of trees is a 19th century cemetery. So we just kept watching this figure go back and forth in the woods, and it eventually changed into an undefined blob type shape and then dissipated, went away.
So
we also,
one thing, Marsha, when Joyce, and she's one of the people that came on and shared that encounter that I'm going to be releasing later at a later date, so people get to hear it from her mouth. But one thing I took from it was she felt like, or in my opinion, I didn't ask her, and I probably should have, but I felt like she thought that it was maybe a Sasquatch that she was looking at. But to your point, it didn't put off any heat. It wasn't.
No.
it was showing up in the FLIR. So you're thinking that maybe that was something paranormal and not a Sasquatch?
I do. I do. I've seen many examples of Sasquatch through a FLIR, up close and far away. They're always hot, unless they're behind a tree, obviously. Or so to see a dark figure with arms swing, the legs moving, I don't believe it was a Sasquatch, at least at this time. That's my hypothesis, and that's where I stand.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense, because that was one thing that was bothering me about the whole thing, was it not putting off a heat signature. But to think that maybe it wasn't a Sasquatch and possibly a spirit, or
Well,
I don't.
yeah, the other thing to remember also is that Dogman is present in the area, supposedly. We got minimal evidence for that. I believe there was one potential footprint with 3 toes. But other than that, who knows? Maybe Dogman is a paranormal entity. And, I'm a rational scientist. I'm a geologist, meteorologist, and engineer. And I've come to learn in the maturity of my practice that I can't explain everything in the world. And that includes white and blue orbs that float through the forest. I just can't explain them. But the best I can do is record the data, make the observations, and do my best to try to gather more information to explain them.
I've said it a million times. People are seeing stuff that we can't explain. You just said it. You're an educated woman, and there's things that you can't explain either. We're doing such a disservice to everyone by not at least listening to what people are reporting, because everyone's not lying. They're not all making it up, and we need to listen to everybody.
No, they're not. No, they're not. And the thing is that in the science of this, we can't let personalities and egos drive our efforts apart. I may disagree with someone else; they disagree with me. There's groups out there that want to go out and hunt these entities. There's people who say they're apes. There's other people that say they're not. I respect them for their opinions. No animosity. I see us all on that joint venture to examine and try to determine what it is that we're experiencing. And that's how I want to move forward. People like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a true anchor in the field, David Politis, Matt Moneymaker, they're all greats and giants in this field. So, but we all got to work towards a common goal, and it's going to mean a diversity of opinions. So
very true, very well said. Marsha, thank you so much for taking
You're very
the
welcome.
time and share with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I had
Anytime.
a good time.
Yeah, we have any encounters in the future, we'll reach out and share them again.
Sounds good. You enjoy the rest of your evening, man.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Yeah, man, I hate that we had such issues with technology and that. And if you guys noticed, while I was down for a few minutes, I switched the computer back to the 8 to 10 inches to the right from where it originally was, and I haven't been kicked out.
Yeah, see, it just didn't
What?
want to move.
But
You made
why?
it mad.
I know. I mean, it's less than a foot from my other laptop. My other laptop, I've got 4 windows up on it, looking stuff up, communicating with people, and it's fine. But this computer, where that one is, nothing. I get kicked out. It makes no sense.
Hey, but you got to stick with whatever works. But it's all right. It's all right. We got it.
Yeah.
I got you back.
Good stuff from Marsha. And one thing I wanted to hit on, and I hate that I didn't get to, Marsha mentioned before we came on that she had never heard of any type of dangerous encounters with the Sasquatch in this area, people being hurt, killed. And she spoke to like 4 encounters there where she was up pretty close to these things and they didn't bother her. So that's interesting.
It is. And she was saying, you know, if they wanted to hurt her, they would have hurt her. And
Had
you
every
hear
opportunity.
yeah, and you hear a lot of that with Dogman too. Like these things are, you know, they move so lightning quick. If I mean, in an instant they could have you, but for whatever reason, they don't.
Yeah.
They
I don't know. It makes no sense. But we'll keep listening to people and hearing what they have to say and getting out in the field and doing our own stuff, and maybe we'll get an answer to it one day.
Yeah, you know, and I would love to, you know, now that it's getting cold and all the spiders are going away because I hate spiders. You know, we live 10 minutes from the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I would love to just get out there and trample around and look and see what is out there.
Yeah.
I am just
You know, something that we all can do, because I mean, most of us live relatively close to an area that is good location for Sasquatch, or there's been Sasquatch reports. I bought a cam for my car. What are they called? The little
the
cameras
dash.
you put, dash cam.
Mhm.
All you gotta do is put that out and start driving around these back roads up in the mountains at night. If you don't have anything planned, you know, ride around with the dash cam going. How many times do we hear about roadside crossing
Right.
sightings? Maybe
Well,
you'll get
and
one on camera.
yeah, and I mean, when Zach and I first started dating like 1,000 years ago, we would go up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you could just, I mean, when it's dark and you're surrounded by trees, you're just waiting for something to walk out in front of the car. You're just waiting for it.
Yeah. Ristal asked if I'm on Ethernet or Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, I'm on Wi-Fi. My router is above me. There's no way that I can run a cable. I would have to drill a hole through the floor, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty involved.
I don't know. I've thought about buying a separate router for down here. Maybe that would help. I don't know. But I mean, as you guys can see, I'm not having any issues right now.
Right. Well, and you got to think about how many things your router is using, like your phone, your laptops, television, possibly. I mean, so it's going to be pulling from all of those. Zach said he would help you troubleshoot.
Yeah, I saw that and I appreciate it. I just don't know what all we can troubleshoot. I mean, we can look at it and see though. All right.
Yeah.
You got anything else before we get out of here?
I don't.
We'll say your goodbyes then.
Well, you all have a good evening, and thank you for coming and hanging out with us. Please like, subscribe, and follow, and we will see you soon.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us on this Tuesday evening. Be doing a live show tomorrow night over on Sasquatch Odyssey. Tiffany and I will be there. We are doing another live That Bigfoot podcast episode. I don't think we have started sharing it or promoting it yet, but we will be live over there with Chad and Bob from the Basement Hangout. Going to be talking Bigfoot and UFOs. So I hope you guys will head over there and check it out. I think that's going to be 7:00 tomorrow. But all right, guys, y'all take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.